Hello, welcome back to Nadya's Identity Files. It's round table time with both of my guests. Hello. How does it feel
Hello
to
again.
all be sitting here together?
Lovely.
Talking about music and identity. So what I was thinking in this segment, something a little non-traditional, is that I could kind of act as a liaison between you two, because you're seasoned in the music industry, whereas this one is still up and coming, trying to find her footing. So maybe you can ask some music-based questions for Vander that he can answer, and I can be kind of like liaison. What do you think?
That would be so cool. Yeah. So what do you think is the most challenging thing to, like, when you're trying to put music out in the world, like, what's the most challenging thing you have to go through?
Well, I think the most important thing is to separate yourself and create an image and a sharpness for your brand. That's what's most important. You can develop your brand in between projects. You might put out a song 1 year, and you might not put out another song for another 2 years, but your brand, if you're building a message that you want to send out to your audience and to the world, that message and that feel can continue to be put out and grow without necessarily having added any new art to the spectrum yet. So what I'm always trying to do is think of my brand as almost like kind of like how Nadya has her own show. I look at my social media as my station, and what I'm trying to do is create something that people are always just want to see what I'm going to post next. They're looking forward to some new music, but even if I don't give them new music, they're still interested in what I'm going to post next because they feel like I'm making an effort to connect to them. So I would say the most important thing is speak to your audience, not necessarily directly, but give them a feeling that it matters to you what they are feeling when you post something or when you say something, whether it's on Twitter or whether it's on a show or whatever you're doing. Keeping that emotional connection, I think, with your followers is very important.
That's great. Wow.
Yeah, and I feel like that would also kind of give the audience a feeling that they are a part of the process. So obviously when you're taking a break between, releasing music, you're probably working on just developing your next thing. So it's like when you're engaging with your audience in that time, it shows that they are a part of that process and they have an influence on your next move.
Absolutely.
As well.
And what about recording sessions? Like, what do you expect from a singer?
The most important thing is a balance of professionalism, solid goals, and self-discipline. The more successful a recording session has a lot to do with the fact that I show up knowing exactly what I need to do to get it done, and I expect that the singer does the same thing. So, for example, a singer could have a great voice, amazing voice, maybe they're really good at live. Then they get into the studio setting, they put their headphones on, they get in front of the microphone, and they're looking at the producer in the computer, and they freeze. They have no idea what to do. Other times it's reversed. Sometimes you have a singer who's in the studio, they're a genius. They can't make a single mistake. Every time they get there, they sound fantastic. Then they get onto the stage and they're live and they freeze. Or they don't move forward with business, or they don't move forward with their social. So, everything needs to be very tight. I would say if you were to balance, say, hard work and professionalism versus talent, the former wins every time. If you look at some of the most successful artists and singers, some of them are incredibly talented, some of them aren't. But guess what? They're all professional and they all get it done. They get work done. That's what's crucial. So I would say in the studio, show up prepared, feel confident, obviously be open to the instructions of a producer and ideas that the producer has, but know your craft. Know what kind of microphone do you sound good on? What when the producer's working, like, do you know what kind of compressors or what kind of EQ you sound best on? The more you're prepared and know your own sound, the more helpful and the more productive the session will be for the producer. So that's very important, I think. And you know, it's something that it doesn't come easy. It takes research, and it takes time to do that, and it takes experience being in the studio.
Yeah, of course.
Would you say the majority of artists are not prepared in that way? I would imagine they're
Yeah,
not.
you know, there's a lot of artists. You know, the problem is they get. It's kind of like the foot before the horse. It's like they get really excited about one thing they've done. Let's say they had a big song with somebody, or let's say they did some big show, or let's say they have a lot of followers. So then they assume that because they have those things going, that means that they're somehow amazing in the studio with the producer, or they don't need to adapt. The more humble you are, and the more you always look at, no matter where you're at and no matter who you're dealing with, you coming from it from a grounded perspective, the more successful you'll be. So yeah, absolutely. I've dealt with, especially in the past when I've worked with a lot of rappers, for example, you'll get, oftentimes you, you bump up against a little bit of arrogance, and you bump up against sort of this feeling of like, oh, I've done this before, so I know it all. And the less that you're like that, the more you'll find success in studio sessions.
And what would you say is the key to keep yourself grounded with all the business things and like?
Well, I think it takes time, and just I think the biggest thing is always you should be your toughest critic. No one should be harder on how you sound, what you expect of your brand and your new music as you. And when I make music, and whether I'm doing my vocals or whether I'm doing my beats and stuff like that, I believe that if I can look at myself in the mirror and listen to a piece of music that I've done and say, I love this music, I would listen to this music. If I heard it on the radio and it was another artist, I'd be like, that's a hot track. Like, I respect this artist. You have to feel that way truly deeply about your own sound and have the confidence around that, and that is what will propel you forward. And people will respond to that. I've never put out music that I, felt that way about, that people didn't respond to. I've never been like, wow, that's bizarre. Nobody liked this song, and like I really loved it so deeply. No, it's always the other way around. It's like if I rushed something or I didn't 100% love it, but then I dropped it, then sometimes it'd be crickets, So that's really crucial.
Yeah, I think that confidence is super important because people pick up on that, and people pick up on energy. I mean, it's an energy that you exude, and I think that if you're putting out an insecure energy, people are going to be like, well, if this person doesn't trust in themselves, why should I trust in them also? I mean, there's a huge distinction between being confident, though, and being cocky. And in this town, you will stand out when you are confident, but humble, because there's a lot of cocky people out here who have nothing really to back up that arrogance.
Totally. And just love what you do. Love making music. Have a passion for it. I mean, the point of all of this stuff is to just be happy. And the happiness of creating beautiful music, sharing it with the world, that should be your motivating drive. And if that stays your motivating, stays your motivating drive, then everything else will come together for you. Seriously.
Right. And having that clear purpose, and always thinking outside of yourself. What am I bringing to the world with my content? What impact am I leaving on others?
Paying attention. I'm constantly my harsh critic, not just for my music, for my social media brand too. Of if I do a couple posts in a row and they aren't as successful as other posts, I'm not just like, oh, they're I posted at a bad time, or why are my fans being lame to not supporting me right now? I go, no, what happened was I didn't give them the best content I'm capable of. It's my fault. I didn't do something thorough enough. Like I posted too many of these pics in a row, or like not enough new content, or this or that. Look, always the first person to blame for something not going the way you want. The more it's you and yourself, and the more responsibility you take, the more the next action will be more refined.
Yeah. And I think that's really good advice. However, at the same time, don't be a masochist. I mean, I think that we are artists and we're creatives, we tend to be super perfectionistic, and there can be times where we're just like, we're going over something in our mind so much and that we don't move forward and take the
Yeah.
necessary
That's a great point,
actions.
Nadia. Actually, I would follow. One thing that is you can take that too far and never put out new music or never put out new content
Yeah.
because you're constantly being like, is this good enough? Is not good enough. You can't be afraid to pull the trigger, as they say, and just put stuff out there and see how it goes. Especially
Yeah.
early on, try different things and think about like what sets you apart, what makes you special, and why do people want to follow you and be into your music and stuff.
Yeah.
That's crucial.
And as the saying goes, it's better to get it done than to get it done perfect. You know what I mean?
I like that.
So
I like
That's
that.
a good, yeah.
get
that's
her
a-
done. I'm like, oh, Hagerstown on you now. You guys remember where I'm from.
For sure.
Awesome. Well, I think that this was a super valuable segment.
Yeah.
I think that
Absolutely.
you learned a lot, and we had really cool discussions with both of you about identity and music. And if there's anything else that you want to add before we close today's episode, now's your time. Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Well, I just want to thank you, Nadya, for having me. It's been a pleasure and nice to meet you as
Absolutely.
well.
Nice to meet you too.
Yeah,
Such
absolutely.
a pleasure and an honor. Thank you.
Of course. And have safe travels back to Mexico.
Oh, thank you.
And you guys, I'll see you next week.
Take care.